Now, we have our leaders panel next. I can see the leaders gathering like lions around the watering hole. They just need to have some microphones put on them, so I've just got to keep your attention for a minute or two if I can. I've met quite a few leaders over the years. Memorably, I was invited to a dinner a few years ago hosted by Jeremy Goring, and it was all big hitters, all leaders around the table, apart from myself, obviously. And one of them was the former Prime Minister, John Major, and I thought, it'd be fascinating to have a chat with him. And he was too far away for me to talk to, but we moved into another room for coffee and cognac and so on. So I went up, and I was running Pride of Britain hotels at the time. So I said, oh, good evening, Sir John. I'm Peter from Pride of Britain. And he said, keep making Britain proud. I said, well, thank you very much. I'll do my best. I said, I'm so pleased I plucked up the courage to come and speak to you properly. I said, because I've met other people, you know, and I've sort of nerves have failed me. For example, your predecessor, Lady Thatcher. I said, I found myself in the same room as her once, and I never had a conversation with her, which I've regretted ever since. Oh, he said, I'll tell her next time I see her, which I hope will not be for some considerable time. So he had a bit more of a wit than I expected. And then about 2 years ago, get those microphones on, will you? About 2 years later, I was visiting the barbers that I used to go to when I had a proper job, Truefit and Hill at the bottom of St James's. And I turned up for my appointment, and who should be in the chair next to me? John Major. So I turned and I said, you won't remember me, Sir John, but we were at Jeremy's dinner a little while ago. You told me to keep making Britain proud. Oh, I said, what you don't know is that when we were all kicked out at the end of the evening, there were 25 of us at the dinner. I was alone in the street in the rain outside trying to get a taxi. And that's when it dawned on me I was the only guest at that dinner who didn't have his own chauffeur. And he said, oh, well, at the risk of name dropping, this is John Major talking to me, we were guests of George and Barbara Bush on one occasion. When we came out of the dinner, we realised we were the only guests without their own aeroplane. Right. Here they are, the leaders. Welcome the leaders, ladies and gentlemen. Moderator Caroline Baldwin.
Super. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Caroline Baldwin. I am the Deputy Editor at the Caterer. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon to hear from our expert panel to conclude a jam-packed conference here at HOSPACE. It's an extremely challenging time to be a leader of a hospitality business. But we have the best of the best here this afternoon to discuss those challenges and opportunities facing the industry and how to be a leader during such challenging times. So at the end, I have Andrew Stembridge from Iconic Luxury Hotels. I have Guillaume Marley from the soon-to-open Waldorf Astoria London Admiralty Arch, and Anne Golden from Pan Pacific, and next to me here, Louisa Green from RBH Hotels. So, before we dive into questions, and I'll come to some audience questions later on, so keep hold of those if you've got some there. I'm going to let my panel tell them a little bit more about their own businesses and their role in leading that business, and then we'll get into the meaty stuff. So, Andrew, maybe you can start at the end.
Okay, so Andrew Stembridge from Iconic Luxury Hotels. We're a small but growing collection of properties. We have 6 in the UK and 3 internationally now. 2 of those are management contracts. Some of you will know probably some of them very well in the UK, like Cheetham Glen in Clifton House. And then we're part of a wider portfolio of hotels under L&R Hotels, which is 115 hotels, 23,000 hotel beds across the UK, Europe, and America.
Guillaume.
Guillaume Marley, General Manager of the Waldorf Astoria London. We aim to open next summer, 26. Look, very privileged to be leading a team that is going to be, I think, lucky to be able to give this monument a new lease of life into the next 100 years. It's been there for about 115 years already. And it's not lost on my team and I that we have a huge responsibility to do so very well. So excited about that for next year.
Super.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I'm Anne Golden. I'm the General Manager of Pan Pacific London, and I also look after our North American properties. So Pan Pacific Hotels Group has 52 properties currently, predominantly in Southeast Asia. So I've got some of my amazing team at the back there, and they'll tell you how difficult it was when we first came into London. Everybody was saying who when I told them about my new role. So yeah, it was tough to break into London, but it's been a fantastic journey. So.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Louisa Green. I'm the Managing Director of RBH Hospitality. We are a third-party management company operating 55 hotels, I think, at the moment, across the UK. We operate every type of hotel, so all of the brands. We also have independent hotels. And my role predominantly is to drive the operational and commercial performance of the hotels and really drive owner returns. So I'm very aligned with an owner expectation. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to scooch my chair out so I can see you all properly. We can really get into this. So let's take a bit of a temperature check. Oh, yes. Go straight into it. What's keeping you up at night? Is it excited prospects of hospitality in the future, or is it more nightmares over the P&L at the minute? Louisa, what's bothering you?
Well, I think first you try not to let things bother you. Look, there are some challenges. We're facing external challenges in our industry. I've always said that as an industry, we can overcome most things that, are put in front of us. Goodness me, we turned hotels into hospitals over COVID, we'd have done anything and everything to overcome it. But there are some external challenges. But I think what we still do and what we always do is find a way around it, look for other opportunities. Where can we find some efficiencies in the building? Where can we find some revenue generating ideas that we haven't tested yet? How can we do things differently, and can we be a bit more innovative in how we approach things? But there is a challenge, there is a profitability challenge, and the owner returns then a result are probably what keeps me awake at night.
So it's finding those marginal gains. Or...
But also finding the balance, As an industry, again, we will do everything we can, and sometimes that can put quite a bit of pressure on the teams as well. They will try everything, work all the hours, and can do it. So we've just got to be mindful of getting the right balance as well at the same time.
Does that chime with you, Anne? Or is it
does. Everything that Louisa's just said. Plus, I do worry a lot about the fact that we don't have any fun anymore. I don't know about you, but when I first joined hotels, honestly, it was crazy. Every day was different, and we were doing the same thing, checking people in, checking people out, getting safety deposit box keys. But it was, there was a lot of fun. I think a lot of that has gone. For the first time in history, there's the possibility of having 5 different generations in your workplace, and what that means, as we all are painfully aware, is that there's often a miscommunication. And I think that I'll get to the point. What keeps me awake is our potential inability to engage the generations like Gen Z, Gen X, and so on. Because I think if we're not able to truly understand how we can make a hospitality career seem really sexy to them, then I'm wondering what is the future of hospitality. Because right now, I know with the younger people in our hotel and the hotels that I manage, it's very much about not just a manager, you have to be a coach, a cheerleader, often sometimes a parental role as well. So there's a lot going on. So it's really just that in a nutshell. How can we as an industry bring back a little bit more fun, make it seem like a really fantastic career for the younger generation. Yeah.
Guillaume, you've got a lot on your plate at the moment. How are you intending on bringing in that fun?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier the fact that you have one chance to open a hotel really well at that level in particular, when there is such a landscape of luxury properties in London. So I'm very conscious that everything has to be absolutely perfect, knowing that it won't. So that's okay. We'll deal with that when it happens. But effectively, yes, I sleep really well normally, but sometimes I'll get up to have a glass of water at 2 a.m. and then the list of things I have to do and I haven't done yet comes and I don't sleep anymore. But as I said, the excitement also keeps me awake because once again, I feel rather lucky to be the GM that with a fabulous team is going to take the building forward. But yeah, a lot to think about, you're right.
I'm sure. Andrew?
I think for us, I think the problem lies with the fact that actually I think running the business is so increasingly complex, and I think it's certainly in our hotels, a lot of it is about creativity, is about innovating, and I felt almost that fear that you lose the ability to do that effectively because you feel like you're wading through treacle, and also allowing, I think, our leadership team in the business is actually that ability to do. And as Anne said, it was almost that bit where it was fun, and there was getting the job done, but then there was always that time in the day or that time to go away to actually be creative and to think differently. And I think that's getting squeezed so hard. And I think at the same time, some of what I think Louisa was saying, that in terms of it's that those trying to keep those managers motivated as well, and for them to, I think it's a really, really hard thing to do, and I think it takes sort of all your energy to do that. So.
I'd love to come back to this generational gap in the workplace that you talked about, and how you even begin to manage that across, and also teach your managers how to manage that. What's your approach there?
Okay, so we've decided that we need to just change things up a little bit. So we recently opened a new training hub in the hotel, and in it we've really gone out of our way to produce non-vocational sessions and workshops and trainings, if you like. So, we did a session on personal branding. We've done imposter syndrome. We've done a session on menopause, and and I just think that, although I have to say, that wasn't aimed at the Gen Zs, but what we're trying to do is just give them something to be interested in that isn't just, okay, right, opera cloud's coming, I've heard them all in a room, and make them learn the differences between opera premise and opera cloud. So we're trying to create some value for them, right? Why are you in hospitality, so that when they go and they're down the pub and they're talking to their friends, and they can say, actually, it is really cool, right? We're not just learning the systems, we're actually getting some broader information and broader learning. So we're trying that at the moment. I'll keep you up to date, tell you if it's working. But it definitely seems to have engaged them a lot more.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think these changes have, I guess, forced us, in hindsight, and we welcome it now, to really adapt and develop more empathy. I remember 30 years ago in the 90s when I was a young trainee, the leadership style was very dictatorial in the sense that you would gospel listen to what was said, and then he would execute that particular task without ever questioning it. I think in the last 30 years, certainly generations, but also the styles of management that we've had to adapt to and now embrace fully, of course, is more about collaborative, understanding what people need and want, and therefore getting the best out of them quite consistently every single day, which then develops fun and happiness, and really lead by example in that way. So, as the GM or MD or whatever of a property like this, you've got to be available all the time. You've got to be present on the floor. You've got to see things that are falling apart and pick them up and say, what's wrong? Okay, let me help you. We'll find a solution, and it's relentless. Excitingly so, though, I would suggest, as opposed to, oh my God, it's relentless. No, it's amazing to be able to contribute to our team members' happiness and life every day in that way.
Well, I totally agree. Sorry,
right.
I'm itching to jump in here. but do you remember when it used to be, people would say, oh, they're just they're great at their job, but they're terrible with people. But it was like, that was okay. It was okay to be terrible with people, even though they were managing people, and so I completely agree.
I think going back to the generation conversation as well, a couple of weeks ago I was invited to one of our general manager meetings, and they had a development session about understanding the differences from each generation. But they were generalising them, and one of them, they were really saying, well, they're going to learn this way and they want to be communicated this way. You can't do that. You can't, and you certainly can't adapt your leadership style to adapt to all of those different variations. And one of the things they did keep talking about, and I did smile about it, you know, they were comparing themselves to their generation, to the younger generation, and say, you know, they were saying things like, you know, they don't want to go out anymore, and they don't, you know, they don't want to do the hours that we used to do. And I said, good. Take the positives about that and take the good things about these generations, because it's good that they're going to get a better work-life balance, because we were shocking at it and we are not a good example for it. So take the positives from each of them.
Completely agree on that.
It's a fine balance, isn't it? Otherwise it becomes a bit of us and them as well. So you kind of need to understand those interesting things that make each generation different. The whole, they don't like picking up the phone. That's the one that keeps coming up as well. But equally, not incurring that day.
Yeah.
And it's as leaders, it's quite a, as I say, a fine balance. And Andrew, I would love to hear your thoughts on the generational.
I think it's much the same. It's understanding, and this is something we've done we do an annual leadership conference, and that's very much about, I mean, the goal of that was to ensure that we give every member of the team a great boss, as simple as that. And so we do different sessions, and some of those, again, over the years have been very much on this, in terms of actually, it's understanding, it's getting our leaders in the business to understand why do people come to work, and it's actually understanding that for every person that's a different reason. You know, and often it's not for money, and it's often, so it's about purpose in the business. And that, I think the one thing we've learned with obviously the younger generations is that, you know, our sustainability efforts, for example, far more meaningful. They want to be they want to be part of a business which cares not just about them but about the environment. So I think it's trying to open their eyes up, and I think what we found, and it takes time, but I think a lot of our leaders are programmed with this sort of mentality that, well, when I was growing up, that's what, you know,
that's what you did.
And I did these hours, so why weren't you? Why do we need to be flexible? And just getting into that understanding, and the ones that are winning are the ones that have adapted, and they are flexible. And, you know, if someone wants to have, you know, different flexible working hours, well, let's try and make it happen. And I think it's starting that understanding that if we don't do that, then, you know, we're not going to have a happy and engaged workforce. But frankly, you know, we'll continue to have gaps in the business if we don't fill them with pockets of people who are there for all sorts of different reasons and from all sorts of different generations.
So day to day, what keeps you in check and making sure that you're listening? And
yeah, I mean, I think it is exactly that. It's listening, it's understanding, it's making sure that, you know, we have a system of you know, the sort of annual appraisals have gone, probably except for our leadership team, but we have coffee chats. They're exactly that. That's designed to be sort of quick and friendly, but regular, and just in terms of understanding how people tick, and using them to identify the people in our business that, you know, some of them want a career path. I think that's important. Others, they're there for other reasons. You know, for them, it's just it's a moment in time when they're there, and we're happy to have all of those people working for us. Yeah. So I think it's making sure that those processes are in place so that we can, you know, we're constantly developing people and as I say, keeping people engaged.
And Guillaume, you must be putting a lot of these processes in place at the moment. How many are you looking to hire or hiring at the moment?
So right now I have a team of 6.
6? That's not quite enough at the moment.
But you know, it's amazing because when you open a hotel, and it's the second time I do that, you're in a great position because you can really, as the leader, first of all, define clarity and integrity very quickly. So you can tell people the purpose of why they're here and what we're trying to achieve, where sometimes when you're running already as a property, then you're just always catching up. It's harder to stop and pause. So here, very lucky. But also I could really handpick the best people in the market. So, you know, there's some today in the room, and, you know, it's a rather lucky position to be in because you can really, and look, as a leader, I give clarity and integrity to the business, but I select experts because I'm an expert at nothing, really. They are the ones that help me and guide me into making decisions that I am accountable for the property and for the team and everything else, but realistically, they lead me as much as I lead them. And I think that's a really important thing to do, not just now, but to get the best out of people and effectively create a culture where staff, employees, colleagues want to work and develop and grow and and it fosters real good talent.
Louisa, other end of the scale, 50-odd properties in the portfolio, how do you do those temperature checks with your workers, and is that where kind of maybe data comes in and you have to look a little bit more wider?
Yeah, it does to a degree. I think you've got to stay connected in whichever way is the most effective way. So we will do the employee engagement surveys, we'll do them across the management company, and we'll do them across all the hotels. We'll try and vary it to try and get a different response, try and avoid the staff feeding being the most negative comment. You know, I don't think that's changed in my entire career. That's always been up there. And communication, ever since, you know, I can remember, communication always appears. But that means it's still relevant, and you've still got to look for ways to, you know, improve your communication skills. So, but also, you know, we try and operate without hierarchy. We try and be as approachable, connected as possible to get the feedback. Because I think still the people interaction is the most important way. If you know, our general managers, they can be very vocal. They will tell us it as it is, and that's exactly what we want. We want the honest feedback so we can adapt and change necessarily. So I think for me, really we'll do the data, we'll do the process, but being connected is probably the most important.
Definitely. I'd love to understand in terms of your managers and the people on the ground day to day, how much information do you share with them about the wider workforce? I was just thinking in terms of all of the changes with the employment laws coming down and things like sickness is suddenly just being turned on its head, and how people are going to have to hire in that. Some operators are looking at it from a data perspective in terms of sickness. So how you almost putting it in part of their goals for profits and such.
It's, I mean, taking the legislation piece to begin with, we've recently just done a bit of an overview session to all of our general managers and our owners, you know, to prepare them, saying this is what looks like is coming down the line. Because it's huge, you know, some of these changes are so significant, and if we need to get ready now, you know, we need to make sure we're operating in a way that we can manage that as best as we possibly can. So we've already started the communication cascade into that to better ourselves in readiness for it. What's the next part, sorry?
Oh, no, it's in terms of the managers, how much, I suppose, leeway are you giving them to manage in terms of sales figures and things, and in terms of sales?
So how much information?
Yes.
So in terms of KPIs around people, we try and keep it to the employee engagement surveys. We will keep it to what's relevant in the business at the moment in time. So coming out of COVID, retention was very relevant. So we keep KPI'd on that. Sickness, absence, yes, we track it. We track it. We don't actually make it as a KPI for our hotels at all, but we absolutely track it, because you've got to know if there's a problem or there's something that's emerging that we need to put more focus and attention onto. So we're very transparent. We will share all of the data across all the hotels. So a general manager is fully equipped to operate their business effectively.
I'll come to audience questions in the next 5 or 10 minutes. If you've got any, I'll come to you in a moment, Harry. Any other clever technologies being used across the business at the moment? What's your kind of go-to that's really AI, obviously, is the word on everyone's lips at the moment. Where can it be used today and 5 years from now? Guillaume, are you looking at this in terms of
Yeah, opening? I mean, Laura Sharp mentioned it earlier in the previous panel, is that, again, we're in a good position because everything we do is guest-centric, and how we can help then the employees deliver that experience. So again, we're in a position where we can decide from scratch, does that system deliver everything we want to deliver? And then we can challenge the partner or the suppliers who say, well, listen, you're here right now, but we need to increase that performance to that. Can you or can't you do it within the next 6 months, because we open in 6 months? Yes or no? So I think for us, it's very important to establish that from the start and have that clarity. And actually, it's allowed us to, I guess, sieve through quite a lot of potential partners that we might or might not go with. But as Laura said, she's absolutely right. Everything I and we look at is about improving the guest experience, and that system contributes to delivering this day in, day out.
You've got the clean slate at the minute, so everyone's quite jealous of you at the moment. You can just have a drink of the bunch.
Having said that, we also have 30 years and more in the company and myself of things that we're used to. Sometimes comfort and being used to something is easier than venturing out of what you know, particularly when it comes to technology. So it is tempting to Opera or whatever system you want to use, let's stick with that, or Micros, because it's safe and we know it works or has worked in the past. But there's so much happening now and going on that I want to really explore every opportunity and systems to get the best.
I agree with Guillaume that I think in our world, personal service is going to become more and more luxurious, and it's going to become a rarer and rarer commodity. And I think, therefore, those that can deliver better, more personalized service, but it will win. But then we need to use AI to help us with that. And I think that's what we're starting to see. I think in a world where I suppose claims are becoming more and more common, litigation is becoming more common. So having that, using systems to ensure that we've got an audit trail on everything in terms of, glitches. It's amazing. I actually bizarrely had an email from someone asking for a refund on an 8-night stay because they'd had all sorts of things that were wrong with their stay. But I've got verification from the team that at no point did the guest during their stay raise any issues. There's no glitches raised, there's nothing. And yet he claimed he did. So we'll see where that one goes. But I think at least we've got the confidence that we have the systems in place which actually demonstrate that had that person actually complained, it would have been logged, it would have been reported, it would have been, and I think that's where actually technology really does support the business. We're also, we've just gone through it's been sort of well documented, a big transition with NLR in terms of centralizing our commercial platform, which has been really exciting in terms of going from, a situation where we've probably got more generalists in each of the businesses to centralizing it, standardizing our tech stack throughout, which again has been really exciting and a really interesting journey for us all. I think for me, very much on property for the operators, it's still the lack of integration, which I know came up in the last session. And there's still real flaws in what we do. That data, because I think our leadership decisions moving forward they need to be, our stakeholders are looking for us to make decisions based on data, and that's probably one of the biggest changes in my time. It's all data driven, but therefore you need accurate data to be able to stand by those decisions, and that's still there are flaws in it, and it's only and unfortunately a lot of even the best-in-class systems, they're still they're not seamless yet, and I think that's probably one of the biggest opportunities is to try and link some of those up and join them, and also probably give the operational departments more time, more guest-facing time, so they're not. And I think that's one of probably the biggest issues for our GMs in what's keeping them awake at night. That so much of their week is driven by actually doing reports, et cetera, and I think it's trying to actually give them more time back, guest-facing time, and I think that's where the big opportunity is.
And if I could just jump in there, a lot of us probably attended the Master Inholders conference back in January, and John, our hotel manager, and I were sat there, and one of the panel members said, can we have a show of hands in the room, how many of you hoteliers have a data analyst in your business? And I think one or two people put their hands up, and he goes, there you go. He said, look, I'm not a hotelier, but if I was, I would be pushing the owners. I would be, doing everything I could to get a data analyst, because you're absolutely right, Andrew. We have all this data, but we don't have anybody. We've been talking a lot about that this week in the hotel. We have nobody really to sit and crunch that data and actually interpret it for us.
And, we talk about some of the challenges in the industry, and growing revenue, top-line revenue is a solution to probably most of the profitability options, and data can give you the insights. Yeah. I mean, it's been quite a focus for us over the last few months, is really investing quite well into data and putting analysts in the business as well, because we think identifying where the opportunities, but giving our teams that ability to very quickly identify, there's a trend, I've got an opportunity in that segment on that night, and that's what I can do about it, helps them and frees up the time at the same time.
I mean, good for you. I think you're doing the right thing. I think that's the gap.
But you've got to, we're fine-tuning in the industry now, aren't we? We're looking for opportunities, so.
It was the previous panel, I think, that's talked about those contextual alerts. You don't want to be overwhelmed with spreadsheets. Your leaders definitely don't, and the invisible tech, which in luxury especially is much needed. So there's definitely one question right behind you. One question right behind you.
It's from Harry Murray.
Thank you, Caroline, and hello, panel. I spoke at great length this morning because, first of all, I'm saddened to hear it's not fun, because I loved every minute of my career, and I'm in that fortunate position now to actually observe the problem. And I spoke about this at length this morning. Firstly, one observation which I've had for a number of years is the groups are swallowing up everybody. I mean, they're getting larger and larger and larger. And a general manager now doesn't just have a job of looking after his guests. He's got to manage up the line. He's got an owner, he's got an asset manager, he's got a marketeer, and they've all got a different vision. So that makes that job more and more difficult.
Yeah.
But the hospitality industry is here to stay. And the investment in London and our larger cities from overseas is just growing and growing. So the hospitality industry is here to stay. And the point I made this morning, we have to manage change. There's no question about it. Yes, the generations. When I came into the industry, everybody talked about working 20 hours a day. A doorman sold his job. There were so many things that you did, but you had to come through that, and they had to manage the younger generation, and that's what's happening now.
And your question is?
Bring the fun back. I mean, it's got to come back. We're in the happiness business.
Yeah.
So be happy. Please.
I totally agree as well. I think it's something I've said in my entire career. It's a fun industry. You've got to love it, this industry. It's a hard slog, but it's great fun. And, we've got to continue to do the things that are fun. Totally agree. Totally agree.
And there is nothing more fun than actually to make people happy around you. So our contribution to, and really, when we look at purpose of why our employees are here, I always tell them, listen, there's one reason for you to be here, which is to make your colleagues and your guests happy. Everything else is a waste of time. And then it becomes very clear and simple as to why we're all trying to achieve and do here. And going back to this very basic core, we just aubergistes, welcome people to our homes and making them happy, basically.
I mean, you see it all over LinkedIn, and it's a well-trodden path now that so many hotels are doing things on a daily basis, all the staff appreciation days, all the payday treats, and I think that, certainly, Harry, that didn't exist when you were growing up, nor I was growing up. And I think so. I think the efforts that we as a business, the budgets for such things are far greater. The budgets for team food are far greater. So it does. Sadly, though, it's almost every year you do, and every year you need to do more.
And they're getting more creative. You've got the team appreciation weeks. You've got to still do your annual awards. You've got to do the recognition schemes. It's all important.
But I think most hotels sort of refer to the back of house now as the heart of the hotel, and I think so. I think a lot's improved, a lot's changed.
Caroline, we have another one over here.
There we go.
As leaders, with some of the issues we face as such, how do you manage some of those difficult conversations you have to have with your teams? How do you go about some of those conversations to keep them as positive as you can?
How do you manage difficult conversations? You start us off.
To keep them positive, well, I think, my colleagues here on the panel have all listed lots and lots of initiatives, but I do think that knowing your people, I think that Guillaume made the point that, if you think about when we were just growing up in the industry, I had some general managers that didn't even know my name, and I had a name badge on. I I think now we're all, not only do we know most of our team names, if not all of them, but we know something about them. And we will use that in a positive way to engage, if it's their favourite football team or, it's a pet or a child. And I think you keep them positive because you start to know a little bit more about what makes them tick. I think we do spend a lot more time trying to understand our teams. And I think we've got more of a intuition now, because I'm constantly saying, and other leaders in the business are constantly saying, do you think so-and-so's okay? Or they don't look themselves today. Is there anything going on at home? Or, there's a lot more of these conversations going on. And I think we're all more empathetic and we're all looking out for each other a little bit more. So that's one of the ways I think we try to keep people more positive, is by that much more personalised. In the way that, it's quite right what you said, Andrew, in the way that the winners in the future are going to be the ones that are able to personalise the interactions with the guests the most. That's true luxury. I think we also, we have to start with our teams, and I think we are. I think we're all doing a lot more of that than we
Are you
used
ready
to.
for another one? Yes?
Where are you? Oh, hello.
Andrew's got a question for you.
Thank you. We've got the budget coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to that. Can I just ask you to look back to the last budget just over a year ago and that huge hike in employer NICs and the impact of that? So analysts reckon it's something like a third of Wetherspoon's pre-tax profits were wiped out by that. Of course, they pushed up their prices to counteract that. But I'm interested, what did it mean in your businesses? What gave? Was it less employment? Was it higher prices? Or was it lower margins? Good question.
It's a big question, do you want to?
Yeah, I can start. I think straight away we looked at pricing. Across all aspects, how much can we share this? And, we challenged our food and beverage pricing. No longer can you just stick to an annual pricing review of your food and beverage outlets. You've got to do it seasonally. How we then looked at things, we went into this, how do we change our product mixes? How can we buy more efficiently, more seasonally across all of our group of hotels? How do we go and review our linen contract to get a better, economy of scale there? So it was a multitude of everything. And when it came to payroll specifically, look, hotels are already, we've gone through a lot of cost initiatives along the years, We've done quite a lot of restructures. We've taken the big gains out of the business. The savings in the payroll you struggle to find nowadays. But so then you focus on productivity, you then focus on efficiency. So it's not about headcounts, it's about the hours and making people work, making sure they're working at the right time and then multi-skilling as much as possible. So I think it's a good question because probably the first time I felt, I've always figured out we'll find a way around this. We can do this here and this will do that. It was the first time we were kind of a bit, gosh, how do we really deal with this? And it's still impacted, we haven't mitigated it in full, but we've found areas where we could do it.
Lots of nodding going on at the end. Andrew, anything else to add there?
I think as leaders we have to challenge everything, and I think the and really start to have time to scratch the surface and understand and lift every stone up, because I think there's a lot of inefficiency in our businesses that's driven by people how think people have always done things, and I think it's trying to re-educate and not dictate, but actually work with teams to say, right, how can we look at workflows, whether that's introducing technology or just literally doing studies of how many movements there are between kitchen and restaurant, and it's so often, as I say, there is inherent inefficiency. And I think the other thing for us is, most of our business are very much TrevPar businesses. 3 of my UK properties, 50% of their revenue is from food and beverage, and therefore it's once you've got a head in a bed or a bum in a seat, then it's about how you can actually get those people to spend more. And we have upselling initiatives in every single department, all self-funding, and the results are phenomenal in terms of just those little bits and actually improves guest satisfaction as well, because people, it's not a hard sell, it's just that extra, pudding, coffee, whatever it may be, upgrade. And all of those things make a big, big difference. So you're not actually having to drive any harder to get those people through the door, but actually when you're there, you're getting them to spend more, and arguably they're having a better time because of it. And as I say, those are, you know, and actually there's a really good buzz. It's motivational because people are actually getting something back. The team are getting something back for actually working hard at it. So.
Caroline, I'll leave you to decide who's going to answer it, but I think you've got time for one more question.
Yeah,
Can you
two,
take
yes,
it?
I think so.
Hello. So in this ever-changing landscape right now, with the rise of cost in every area and the emergence of AI, do you have any advice for people in middle management right now who are striving to become general managers in 10 to 15 years' time?
Are you asking for a friend?
Yeah, great question. Advice for middle managers aiming for your jobs in the future. What one little piece of advice would you give them? Maybe if everyone has one quick tip they can share. Louisa?
Have the confidence and go for it. Yeah, don't just, you know, make it known that that's what you want to aspire to, and people will absolutely support you along the way. There's my advice, but make it known. It's quite straightforward for me.
Great tip.
I think just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you're networking, you're reaching out to people. I agree with what Louisa said. I don't think there's any specific magic, you know, wand. I think everybody gets to general manager in different routes.
Yeah, but we love to see people coming through, you know.
And as Louisa said, I love that. I love that you set your path on that. And I think often people that do have a greater chance to succeed because they're more single-minded and focused. So use your network.
Yeah, I would say do everything with good intentions, have integrity and be always honest and clear in what you want to do. But look, good energy gets you noticed and allows you to progress very, very well. And people like working for leaders that generate an environment that is positive and exciting to work in. And when you have good intentions, consistently every day God makes, then you can't really lose anything there, I would say.
I think understand where the gaps are in your toolkit in terms of, because obviously, as we've talked a lot about, as a leader of a business, you need to be rounded. And I think the other thing is look at what external opportunities are out there in terms of I'm a Master In holder. We have the Master In Holders Aspiring Leaders Diploma, which is a great opportunity. We have the Master In Holders Scholarships to Cornell and Cranfield, which are fully funded. We're always looking for more applicants from non-MI hotels. So those are, if you're, and then there's awards like the Acorn Awards. There's the Future GM. You know, so there's all sorts of things. So look and see, and not only will that broaden your horizons, it will also get you noticed as well. And a lot of, I think, becoming a GM is being noticed out there, and
right place, right time.
Yeah, and use we're talking about LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn to get your name out there.
Great tips there, and thank you for the Acorns tip. If anyone knows a 30 under 30, come and see me later. We have 2 more minutes left on the clock. Even though that was a lovely place to end, thank you so much for that question. It was a really good question. I just wanted a little bit of reflection on your own leadership roles now to end. From the moment you stepped into your first leadership position to now, what has been the biggest difference in your role? We start with you, Andrew, at the end.
I suppose data-driven decisions, 100%. Certainly, that's the world I work in, and there's no choice. And I think just generally more empathy for and understanding of as I say, having teenage children make me realise, or now grown-up children, that actually they're wired very, very differently from how we were when we were that age.
Yeah, I would say empower your people. It's nothing new, by the way, but it's, I think, forgotten quite consistently. Let them do what they do best, and just, guide them along when needed, support as required. And I will go back to integrity and clarity. Just, as simple as that. Keep people focused on 1 or 2 key objectives, and then the rest follows quite quickly.
What's the biggest difference for you?
I think we need to inspire and create purpose for our people. So it's not just about a day-to-day job coming in And I do agree with Harry's passion for our wonderful profession. I think, you know, we have to sort of imbue that in our people. And I think years ago it was more when I was starting out, it was just you were expected to just go along with everything. Now I think it's good that we do all of these things to try and inspire and take care of our people.
I think similarly, in the beginning, it's about proving yourself. You know, in the early stages of our career, we had to prove ourselves, show our value. To now, it's more about giving the others the opportunity, the platform to flourish. Yeah. So it's much less about me nowadays than it is about making sure I get the team having the platform to be able to succeed, and their results will come as well. So.
Thank you so much. Well, whichever generation in the workplace, we've got the 5 generations in the workplace at the moment, aren't they lucky to be led by such empathetic leaders? So thank you all so much for
Very kind.
Thank you.
Well, beautifully chaired, Caroline. Thank you very much. Thank you to Louisa, to Anne, to Guillaume, and to Andrew.